In February of 2017, a video surfaced on social media of a woman having relations with a man while they were both inside the Duval County Courthouse in Florida. The incident took place on January the 31st, while 26-year-old Brittany Lachelle Jones was being arraigned for a previous drug paraphernalia arrest. The woman was seen in the footage performing an oral act on a man subsequently identified as 35-year-old Jeremiah Isaiah Robinson. Aside from the video that she uploaded, Jones was also caught on the courthouse's security cameras. At the time of the clip's release, a message on Jones's Twitter read, "Found a way to get my charges dropped. Shh, don't tell them, and that damn tongue got me in trouble again. LOL." It was initially suspected that the man in the video was a courthouse employee, but a spokesperson for the sheriff's office subsequently clarified that neither Robinson nor Jones worked for the department. The viral video was eventually deleted. The Tristan duo became wanted on warrants for unnatural and lascivious acts, but remained uncooperative. In February, however, Robinson surrendered to the police, while Jones was arrested at her home. Number 7. Trisha Marie Martinez and Harold Brian Escobar. Los Angeles County law enforcement saw a U-Haul pickup truck running through a stop sign in Bell Gardens on January the 3rd of 2018. Upon checking the vehicle's license plate, the authorities discovered that it had been stolen. The thieves were subsequently identified as 23-year-old Trisha Marie Martinez and Harold Brian Escobar, aged 29. The young woman, who was intoxicated at the time, was behind the wheel, and she engaged the police in a chase through several surface streets and freeways. The authorities deployed spike strips which deflated one of the vehicle's front wheels. Martinez continued driving with sparks flying from the pickup's tireless rim until she collided with another car in Montebello, ending the pursuit. As shown in aerial footage, nearly a dozen police vehicles had been trailing the disabled pickup. When the couple emerged from the vehicle with their hands up, Escobar passionately kissed his girlfriend in what the media would describe as a Bonnie and Clyde-like moment. Seconds later, the man was tasered to the ground by approaching police officers, while his girlfriend was taken down and handcuffed. Later in the month, Escobar pleaded no contest to receiving a stolen vehicle and fleeing a pursuing peace officer's motor vehicle while driving. The man, who'd been convicted of carjacking in 2010, received a 4-year sentence. Martinez was sentenced to 16 months in jail after she pleaded no contest to driving or taking a vehicle without consent, fleeing a pursuing peace officer's motor vehicle while driving, and driving under the influence of an alcoholic beverage. Number 6. Jose Caballero and Elisa Alvarez. On a July afternoon in 2014, Jose Caballero and Elisa Alvarez were on Bradenton Beach in Manatee County, Florida. While in full view of other beachgoers, some of whom were with their young children, the couple began to fondle each other. 20-year-old Alvarez then moved on top of 39-year-old Caballero, and the couple started having intercourse. One witness recorded them. Repulsed, beachgoers called the police, with one woman reportedly telling an operator, "He just took her top off. There's a child here." The couple were arrested for lewd and lascivious behavior. Caballero and Alvarez, who was shown smiling in her mugshot, denied their charges and went to trial. During the legal proceedings, their defense lawyer claimed that they hadn't had intercourse and that Alvarez had actually been dancing on her boyfriend to wake him up. However, after hearing graphic testimonies from witnesses and reviewing the video footage, a jury took only 15 minutes to convict them. Alvarez was sentenced to time served, while Caballero, who'd previously served 8 years for cocaine trafficking, received a harsher sentence of 2.5 years. Both had to register as offenders. Condemning the broad daylight display, Assistant State Attorney Anthony DaFonseca said, "It takes a certain type of person to do that in front of children a few feet away." Number 5. Incident in Tulum. A gay couple vacationing in the Mexican resort town of Tulum in February of 2021 were arrested by local police after several beachgoers had complained of their allegedly obscene behavior. Clips of the incident would show the duo handcuffed together and forced into a police vehicle where a third man was already handcuffed. They were accused of being indecent near a group of children, with officers motivating the arrest by saying they cannot be seeing this. As beachgoers gathered around the officers, one of the detained men told them, "We are gay and we were kissing, and that's why they are taking us." The crowd immediately began protesting the arrest and argued with the police, insisting that the men had done nothing wrong and that taking them into custody was a crime. Discrimination against LGBTQ+ people had been outlawed in Mexico since 2003. Some of the beachgoers chanted, "I'm gay too," in solidarity. The police ultimately decided to release the men in order to prevent a riot. Number 4. Mary Killian and Eric Wiedmann. On the evening of April the 14th of 2012, law enforcement in East Naples, Florida, were called to the Green Valley Circle community pool after a man and woman had gotten hot and heavy in the water. The trysting couple were identified as Mary Killian and Eric Wiedmann, both aged 49. Other pool goers had reported their exhibitionism as the latter was in the midst of performing an intimate act on the former. When officers arrived at the scene, they found Wiedmann completely naked in the water. He told the police that he was a nudist, enjoying an evening dip, while Killian similarly maintained that she'd done nothing wrong, telling an officer, "This is why no one likes you guys." The woman was known to local law enforcement as she'd been arrested for marijuana possession the previous year. In the latest incident, she was charged with disorderly intoxication, while Wiedmann was arrested for indecent exposure. Number 3. Philip Frank Panzica and Chloe Scordianos. On the day she turned 21, on February the 5th of 2017, New York woman Chloe Scordianos met 29-year-old Philip Frank Panzica from Texas on the Las Vegas Strip. On that day, Panzica was supposed to get married to his fiancée, exotic dancer Misty Bozant, but they'd had a falling out after he'd come to suspect she'd fallen pregnant with another man. Shortly after meeting each other, Panzica and Scordianos went on the high roller ride together. While in the glass-walled cabin of the 550-foot Ferris wheel, the duo became intimate and engaged in various acts. Other riders recorded them in the midst of their tryst, and they were also captured on the Ferris wheel's security cameras. The footage, which was not released to the public, reportedly showed Panzica getting on his knees and removing the woman's dress as she lay on her back in the center of the cabin. Panzica took off his clothes while standing up in the cabin, exposing his buttocks and privates to the public. At some point, Caesar's security officers contacted the cabin via intercom, telling the pair to compose themselves and put their clothes back on. Panzica and Scordianos paused momentarily, but ultimately ignored the first and an additional warning, resuming their love-making. When the 30-minute ride was over, both were arrested on felony charges. Panzica, a resident of Texas, told the police they were just having a good time and didn't think anyone would notice. The story attracted national and international attention. Panzica was expected to enter a plea of guilty to misdemeanor disorderly conduct in April, but never got a chance to do so. He returned to Houston and in the early hours of March the 19th left a gentleman's club called Vivid, where Bozant worked as a dancer. The duo had since made up, and Panzica was behind the wheel of her car, while two men, 28-year-old Bryant Christopher Watts and his brother Aaron Jones, aged 31, were in the back seat. At some point during the drive, Watts reportedly told Panzica, "You need to come clean," before brandishing a gun and shooting him 5 times. He and Jones then dumped his lifeless body on the side of the road and ordered Bozant out of the vehicle. They left her unharmed, but stole her purse before driving off. As news of Panzica's murder spread, Scordianos was approached by a media outlet. The young woman reported that she hadn't talked to him since the Ferris wheel one-day stand, which she noted was unusual for her, and that she hadn't heard about his death. Watts and Jones were ultimately arrested and charged with capital murder in Harris County District Court. As indicated by court documents, the duo might have been motivated in attacking Panzica by the $4,000 he'd recently been paid by Inside Edition for an exclusive on the High Roller Tryst. As reported by Bozant, the money was inside her purse and Panzica had flashed the cash inside the club, potentially capturing the thieving duo's attention. Watts admitted shooting Panzica but denied murder, claiming he'd opened fire in self-defense because he thought that the victim was planning on robbing him. Today's topic was requested by Kai Meraga 6146 and Cali Girl living in Nevada 8. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Emily Craig and Sean Bowden. On the morning of August the 28th of 2013, South Carolina authorities were called to a North Charleston Home Depot after a man and a woman had entered a display shed, closed the door behind them, and remained inside. When officers arrived at the scene, they went to the shed and found 20-year-old Emily Craig only partially clothed, with the top of her dress untied and hanging at her waist. Her partner, Sean Bowden, was reported as having his pants down near his knees, with his manhood visible. The couple, who were suspected to have had relations inside the shed, were arrested and charged with congregation for unlawful purpose. Craig faced an additional charge of providing false information after she'd initially given law enforcement the wrong name. Bowden was additionally charged with indecent exposure for having his genitals within public view. The following month, Craig pleaded guilty to both her charges and received 22 days behind bars for each, but was given credit for time served. 31-year-old Bowden, who didn't show up for his court date, was jailed for 30 days. If these public displays of affection didn't go downhill fast enough, then what happens when invading personal space goes wrong? Stay tuned after number 1 to find out. Number 1. Charlotte Adams and Ayman Najafi. After a split from her boyfriend and quitting her job as an estate agent, Londoner Charlotte Adams traveled to Dubai to meet some British friends in the fall of 2009. While on a night out on November the 27th, she met British expat and fellow North Londoner Ayman Najafi, who'd been in Dubai for 18 months while working as a management consultant. The pair hit it off, and as the night went on, found a table overlooking the ocean at Bob's Easy Diner in Dubai's Jumeirah Beach residence. They were joined by 3 male friends of Najafi. Looking back on the night, Adams would remember, "I admit I was flirting with Ayman, flicking my hair and having a laugh." She then leaned over to give the man a kiss on the cheek, near his mouth, something she would later defend as an entirely innocent move. The dinner continued, but unbeknownst to them, a 38-year-old woman eating with her family nearby had called the police to complain that they were in violation of the UAE's strict public decency laws. As Najafi walked Adams home, they were arrested by plainclothes police officers. It was discovered that they'd also been drinking alcohol, which, while permitted under certain circumstances, was still officially illegal in the state. A months-long ordeal began for Adams after she and Najafi were each sentenced to a month in prison and subsequent deportation. The woman was forced to surrender her passport as the legal proceedings unfolded. Speaking on the circumstances of her arrest, Adams later stated that the incident occurred on the Muslim festival of Eid, and she believed that locals disliked seeing a blonde girl out with 4 men. A judge denied her and Najafi's appeal. The man chose to continue appealing the sentence, knowing that doing the same would have left her stranded in the UAE for months without money or accommodation. Adams gave up on trying to prove her innocence and began serving her sentence at Dubai's Central Prison. She was incarcerated for 23 days. Adams described the experience as hellish, detailing that she was locked in a cell with 8 other women and only let out to see sunlight for 20 minutes twice a week. Adams told the media that the food was disgusting and recalled, "I felt so lethargic. I'm sure they put something in my food to make me sleep. After serving her sentence in May of 2010, Adams was taken to the airport by a deportation official and placed on a flight back to the UK, where she was reunited with her family. Number 8. David Mulder. Australian street performer David Mulder made headlines around the world in 2013 through a viral video of an altercation with a man who'd been harassing him and invading his personal space. While wearing a cowboy costume, 50-year-old Mulder was in the midst of his human statue act at Cavill Mall in Surfers Paradise, Queensland. An unnamed Brisbane college student captured him on cell phone video shaking hands with a young boy, seconds before he was approached by a visibly intoxicated man. The latter, only identified as Luke by a friend online, began bothering Mulder. He tapped the sides of his face, moved his hat and stuck a saliva-soaked finger into his ear as bystanders asked that he leave him alone. Luke seemed surprised that Mulder wasn't reacting and, as he started walking away, rapidly rubbed his palm into the performer's nose. Exasperated by the incessant harassment, Mulder broke character and punched the man in the face. The performer immediately resumed his routine and no further violence occurred. He apologized for his actions in the aftermath, telling a media outlet, "Violence is never vindicated." The clip of the altercation was subsequently distributed online, where it has since earned millions of views. The vast majority of commenters sided with Mulder, arguing that Luke's actions had been deliberately provocative. Number 7. Santana Jackson. Michael Jackson impersonator Santana Jackson was involved in a video-recorded altercation with an unnamed man on the Las Vegas Strip in January of 2022. Jackson was also an indie pro wrestler whose moves in the ring were inspired by the King of Pop. A year prior, he'd gone viral on Twitter for performing a moonwalk DDT. It involved performing the signature dance move whilst holding on to an opponent's head and then slamming them in the canvas. As he later told TMZ during the January incident, he was approached by a man who appeared to be intoxicated. In a sudden and unprovoked attack, the man started hitting the performer in the face, causing his hat to fall off. Jackson tried to defuse the situation and calm down his unnamed assailant, who was wearing a green t-shirt that read, "Can't fix stupid." The man continued behaving aggressively, ultimately prompting Jackson, an experienced grappler, to trip and take him down. Jackson then put the man in a headlock and squeezed, causing his face to visibly turn red. They were ultimately separated by a passerby, and in his subsequent media interviews, Jackson admitted that he'd tried not to hurt his attacker since he'd appeared to be unwell at the time. Number 6. Al Sutcliffe. While on a night out in October 2014, Canadian man Al Sutcliffe and his friends headed to a fast food restaurant. As he would later recount on his YouTube page, Sutcliffe spotted a young man who was allegedly annoying one of his companions while they were queued up at an establishment in Kitchener, Ontario. Sutcliffe then decided to play a prank on the other man that involved giving him a pizza slap. As shown in a cell phone video of the incident, he walked up to him and extended his hand. In the moments that followed, as the other man attempted to shake his hand, Sutcliffe hit him in the face with a slice of cheese pizza. The slap victim initially stepped back in disbelief, but then began hurling verbal abuse at Sutcliffe. The latter turned his back, sat down and laughed him off. Sutcliffe was then punched from behind by the second man, and the strike knocked him out cold. He remained unconscious on the table for what he'd later estimate to have been over 2 minutes before other diners helped him regain his senses. In the immediate aftermath, he had a dazed expression and a red streak on the side of his face. The video of the ill-fated prank and consequent attack went viral in the aftermath, with a number of viewers arguing that Sutcliffe had been in the wrong and deserving of the violent retaliation. Number 5. Danny Anderson. A security guard at an Asda in Shoeburyness, Essex, England, punched a man into unconsciousness in September of 2021. CCTV clips, which gained traction online the following month, initially drew mixed reactions, as the reason for 32-year-old security guard Danny Anderson's actions was unclear. Some proposed that it had been a racially motivated attack, given that the guard was white while the other man was black. As soon as the latter had walked into the store, Anderson threw a single punch which dropped him to the store's floor. He then dragged him outside by his grey hoodie while he was still unconscious and dumped him in front of the supermarket. A shopper handed the beaten man his cell phone as he struggled getting back to his feet. Stumbling and falling on his face in the process. Anderson subsequently talked to a media outlet and clarified the situation, underlining that race had never been a factor. The guard reported that he'd thrown the other man out of the store on 2 separate occasions leading up to the altercation. He'd allegedly claimed to have a knife and threatened to stab Anderson, as well as other people in the store. When he re-entered the store and aggressively approached Anderson while reaching into his pocket, the guard assumed the man would follow through on his previous threats. Essex police reported that they would be investigating the incident, but as of the latest updates, no charges were brought against the security guard. Number 4. Julius Francis. In June of 2022, former heavyweight boxing champion Julius Francis was working security at Box Park, Wembley, in London, when a male customer began behaving aggressively towards the venue's staff and patrons. The unidentified man, who was wearing a blue do-rag, had pushed and unsuccessfully tried to punch members of the public for up to 15 minutes. As shown by cell phone footage, 57-year-old Francis then moved farther from the entrance, at which point the enraged man walked up to him while shouting and raising his fist. Francis, who in 2000 had fought heavyweight boxing legend Mike Tyson, then struck him with a short right hook. The aggressive man instantly collapsed on the pavement. His injuries were unclear, but he remained motionless for several seconds before the clip, which went viral in the aftermath, cut off. Both the Box Park CEO and fellow staff members voiced their support for Francis when news of the incident started to spread. A review of the video by the Metropolitan Police led them to conclude that the former athlete had acted reasonably and legally given the circumstances. Number 3. Daryl Minter. Shortly after being escorted out of the Coda nightclub in Walnut Street, Philadelphia, an unnamed reveler began pestering the bouncer to let him back inside in May of 2016. The man asked that the much larger security staffer, subsequently identified as 30-year-old Daryl Minter, take a swing at him. In the video-recorded interaction, his proposition entailed that if Minter missed, he'd be allowed back inside. The bouncer refused, but the man remained insistent before getting closer to him. It was then that Minter, who'd been speaking to someone else, suddenly turned his body and struck the man in the head with a swinging punch. A loud thud was heard in the audio accompanying the footage as the reveler's body instantly stiffened up and he fell on the sidewalk, unconscious with his arms raised. A female bystander could be heard remarking, "He's still breathing," in the moments that followed. The video ended with him still motionless, but an eyewitness later told a local news station that he got up about a minute later and started talking to people outside the club. He was taken to a hospital for a gash in his head, while Minter left the scene. Updates on the situation indicated that he'd been arrested and charged with aggravated assault, simple assault, and recklessly endangering another person. Number 2. Melvin Townsend. On April the 20th of 2022, former heavyweight boxing champion Mike Tyson was on a JetBlue flight from San Francisco to Miami, Florida, while on his way to the Benzinga Cannabis Conference, where he was the keynote speaker. During the flight, 36-year-old Melvin Townsend III, a self-described fan, approached the former athlete, reportedly asking for a photo, and their initial interaction was described as cordial. Cell phone footage shared by TMZ and picked up by multiple media outlets then showed Townsend talking animatedly and waving his arms while standing over 55-year-old Tyson's seat. The individual who'd captured the video, believed to have been a friend of Townsend's, claimed that he was pestering the former boxer for mushrooms, adding that he didn't know how to act. Tensions reached a boiling point after Townsend had allegedly thrown a bottle at Tyson, seemingly oblivious to the fact that Iron Mike was once regarded as boxing's most terrifying figure. As shown in the viral clip, Tyson rose from his seat, turned around and began throwing punches at the other man's head. It wasn't immediately clear how many of the strikes had landed, but in the aftermath, Townsend was filmed with blood on his face while maintaining a pouty, sullen expression. In further reports on the matter, he denied throwing the bottle, while Tyson maintained that his punches hadn't made contact with enough force to break the skin and cause the bleeding on the man's face. Both the former boxer and Townsend ultimately decided they didn't want the incident to end up in court. The latter had a lengthy criminal record with convictions that included fraud, burglary, and possession of controlled substances. Tyson himself faced a series of charges before the San Mateo County District Attorney decided to drop the case, concluding that the beatdown had been caused by Townsend's conduct. Number 1. Conor McGregor. mixed martial arts icon Conor McGregor has gotten into a number of altercations throughout his fighting career, some of which were ostensibly sparked by him invading other people's private space. McGregor was the first champion in 2 different UFC weight classes, a feat that added to him becoming one of the most recognizable and wealthiest athletes in the world. Much of his mainstream appeal was a product of the athlete's deftness at self-promotion through his confident and, at times, brash personality. That same attitude would eventually mark a downward turn for McGregor's public image. One notable incident was during promotional appearances for UFC 223 on April the 5th of 2018 at the Barclays Center in New York City. A few days earlier, a fellow fighter and friend of McGregor's had gotten into a minor altercation with UFC star Khabib Nurmagomedov. The latter and McGregor had had heated exchanges on social media in the past. In retaliation for the altercation, McGregor went to Barclays with a group of roughly 20 others. They tried confronting Nurmagomedov, who was on a bus with several other UFC fighters including Rose Namajunas, Ray Borg and Michael Chiesa. They effectively became trapped on the vehicle and the confrontation culminated with McGregor throwing a metal equipment dolly at its window, shattering it. Chiesa and Borg were injured by pieces of shattered glass and needed medical attention. McGregor eventually pleaded no contest to a count of disorderly conduct, for which he was given community service for 5 days. On April the 6th of 2019, McGregor was at the Marble Arch pub in his native Dublin, Ireland, where he insisted that an elderly patron take a shot of his own proper 12 whiskey. The man repeatedly declined and McGregor consequently punched him in the face. He was later charged with assault and ordered to pay a fine of over $1,000. A video of the incident circulated online and earned the UFC fighter further negative press, with many becoming increasingly critical of his behavior. In 2021, on the red carpet of the MTV Video Music Awards, McGregor got into an altercation with recording artist Machine Gun Kelly. The two exchanged words after the fighter had reportedly asked for a photo with actress Megan Fox, Kelly's date. Upon being refused, he'd allegedly become aggressive, lunging at MGK and unsuccessfully trying to punch him. The most recent altercation involving McGregor occurred in 2021 at a nightclub in Rome, Italy, where he allegedly assaulted Francesco Facchinetti, a musician and TV presenter. They'd reportedly been talking and drinking together when McGregor, without provocation, struck Facchinetti and broke his nose. The latter pressed charges a few days later, alleging that the attack had been witnessed by bouncers and other patrons. Thanks for watching. Would you rather have all the videos and photos on your phone become public, or get a tattoo of your latest Google search? Let us know in the comment section below.